Good evening, Crime Crunchies. Thank you so much for joining me. I am your host, Courtney C., a 27-year veteran of the media, and I'm so happy to be able to bring you Crime Crunchies. Wow, wow, wow. I am on a yo-yo. So if you know me and you've been watching long enough, you know that I'm willing to look at any theory. I'm willing to go down any rabbit hole. And I feel like we've come full circle with a few things. And tonight, guess what? I am going back to the family, okay? And there's a reason. In the last day or two, probably the last day, Maureen McConnell, who I respect greatly, I don't think she's drama, all right? I really respect her opinion. I respect her career as an ex FBI agent. And Maureen has been talking about just the weirdness of some of the things that Annie has been saying, some of the things Annie has said, some of the things about the investigation that we are not privy to, that Maureen says she has contacts with. And I really respect that if Maureen comes out and says that I have information that they're getting close to Porch Guy, and then goes on the interview room, the panel last night, and dives in and chimes in about things about the family, then I'm really going to listen. Okay. Now, again, it's no secret also that Chris McDonough on the interview room has pretty much this entire time. I mean, his phrase is, I haven't left the house. He refuses to leave the house. He is an Occam's razor guy and is pretty sure that this is definitely an inside close proximity to Nancy. Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about dynamics in a family and verbiage, language, poetry, all those things tonight. And, I just have to hope that they are getting close to Porch Guy, because I really do think that once we get Porch Guy, that they will get. Let's see, we've got some stuff going on. Nina says Nancy Guthrie case investigation is on hold. They found a possible suspect. I am in contact with private investigator Bill Garcia, who confirmed this is true. All right. Yeah, let's we definitely want to know more about that. Yeah, so and they're saying that the author of the note knew what color pajamas Nancy was wearing. Interesting. So, and I've even mentioned myself that especially the second ransom note that has come up again in the news, that's really kind of helped get this resurgence of energy back in the legacy media. It seems like the second ransom note is a little bit more emotional, a little bit more connected. The wording buried with nature, it sounds poetic, but it definitely sounds like it would be written by a woman. Okay. So let's go in and start looking at some videos. We're going to, and again, this is all speculation, everybody. All right. I just want to be perfectly clear. This is all speculation. I'm willing to look at anything. I'm revisiting this because, again, Maureen McConnell, she went on Megyn Kelly. We're going to look at that video first. Okay. And then, because that was done earlier in the day, and then we're going to look at the interview group or the interview room. Okay. So let me share my screen, and this is your chance. This is your chance right now. You are the lucky person that gets to subscribe to Crime Crunchies and become a Crunchie. Only cool kids can be a Crime Crunchie, okay? So be a cool kid. All right, let's watch this interview. And it's 19, we're not going to watch the whole thing, I promise, but we're going to get into the meat of what Maureen says, and this is like really the tea right here.
We never intended to hurt her. Even like she perished? Perished? Was that word used? I wonder.
Perished.
That jumped out at me. That's not really how people talk. And then the nothing you could have done could have changed the outcome.
Like, don't blame yourself.
Like the weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just very conciliatory and very strange considering the facts of this investigation, of this case, of this poor woman, to talk this way. You know, any self-respecting criminal would at least be a little more honest about what happened here. They're trying to soften what they did. And please don't blame yourself. I hope you're not being too hard on yourself. It's so weird.
Well, because, I mean, if you're following their logic, they had said in the original note on February 2nd, and again, Sunday was the 1st, give us $4 million by Thursday or else. Again, using the term actual or else. And now here we are, they haven't paid, and they're writing the note saying she's gone. Oh, and by the way, there was nothing that you could have done to have changed the outcome. So they seem to be saying, you didn't give us our $4 million, but don't worry, she was dead anyway. Even if you'd given us the money, it wouldn't have panned out for you. But if you want to give us money anyway, we could get the body back to you, I guess. Or at least maybe that's just still lurking out there. It's implied. It's not clear. In Brianna's description of it, no one's talking about, but that original, because the original note we know, James said, $4 million by Thursday, $6 million by the following Monday. If you wait, it's going to cost you more.
Right.
Then comes the second note. Like, why would they send the second note? Like, hey, FYI, she died, and don't blame yourself. Like, what's the point of that?
Well, it looks like they also didn't give any real, particulars on how to get that $4 million to them. It doesn't sound like there was any clear communication given. This is how you would respond to me, get back to me, and then they're just double tapping. Hey, by the way, it's not worth it now because she's gone, and we're sorry, but you can still give me some money because I get the body back.
So, and this is where I don't know that Chris McDonough has gone there, but if Chris is right and this is A&T, okay, is this whole ransom note thing again just trying to divert attention off of them? And the way that the ransom has been conducted, every single person who's dealt with kidnap for ransom before says this does not match anything. There was only one-way communication. It went through a Tucson station and TMZ. And could this obviously be somebody who doesn't know what they're doing? Did something happen to Nancy that Friday night? And this is all a cover-up. Because again, the only thing we know on the last night is what was said about the drop off. Okay. And the oddness of the fact that when A went into the house with T the next day and they called the police, there was supposedly a really long period of time before A called Savannah. And again, I'm calling my sister. Even if she lives in it, I'm calling my sister. Have you heard from mom? What's going on? And then I'm calling 911. Okay. I'm not calling 911 and freaking out until I talk to all of my siblings. All right. Is this whole thing a cover up? And just the grammar of the writer of the ransom note is really well put together, intelligent, sentence structure, grammar, spelling, everything made sense. But the part that isn't working out is how the transaction was supposed to take place. So
to you, but I think you and Maureen are nailing a couple of really important things. If true, that she's with nature instead of saying she's gone with God. I mean, if you're following the case, that that Nancy was a believer, and so that would track with her. This note person saying it was a heart condition, which would track with if you're following the case, about the pacemaker. But saying that she is buried with nature is interesting. That needs to be looked into, and there's plenty of people who are really smart and can put words together and study language and really the context of a statement like that. Is that said in certain parts of the world? And certainly I hope the FBI is looking into something like that, because that's just a very interesting phrase. And then what you had said earlier, Megan, about, we didn't realize the extent of her condition. it kind of drew me to one of, the two things, which is, I thought initially that there was some pre-operational surveillance, meaning they looked at the house and maybe even looked at her. And then whether or not that was because she was Savannah's, mother, or because it's in line with this nice house, nice theory. We were talking earlier about, a crime gang hitting these nice houses, but still both would speak to pre-operational surveillance. And maybe that's what she's, the note writer is alluding to, is when we looked at it, we didn't realize she was that, kind of.
Well, and this takes me back to Derek Kalala and the text that happened the day after Nancy was taken. And yes, it looks like Porch Guy did recon on January 11th, which doesn't really fall into an A&T kind of scheme, but was this a planned, premeditated thing? All right, I'm going to bring up again that when I did research on the school that T worked for, it stated an average salary for a teacher was $53,000. Okay. And if Annie is working for, and I thought it was brilliant that Chris McDonough did research on where Annie actually works and went there, because I hadn't thought of that. That's brilliant. But it's a nonprofit, community-based organization, and they give back to the community. She makes jewelry and sells it, but I'm telling you, there cannot be that much money being made for selling jewelry in a nonprofit and even poetry. Okay. So the type of house that they're living in, I'm not sure how 53,000 on a teacher's salary and someone who works at a nonprofit selling jewelry and does poetry, I'm not sure how that computes. Again, no judgment. I'm just trying to figure out how it's being done. Okay. And if there was money issues, had they gone, and this was one of the first things I asked, and a lot of people have asked, did they go to Nancy asking for money? And Nancy might have been bankrolling stuff for a while. And did Nancy say no? And is there, I've heard that T has or had a gambling problem. Did they get into some sort of trouble and they owed Bitcoin to somebody? And this is where the link of Derek Kalala comes in. Hey, do you have that Bitcoin? They're waiting for it. Just really, really odd. And so, I've pushed this group back, but with the latest information, I don't know. We need to talk about it.
Old or fragile. And I thought that was very interesting.
There's reaction today from Savannah herself, who did address this on the Today Show this morning. It's like you kind of forget that she's back doing her job without any resolution in this case, which, she has to do. We all have a job to do. She has a job to do. But then this story is in the news again, and she, felt the need to respond for obvious reasons. And here's what she said.
The bravery and courage with which you have done this job every day since that happened.
And no disrespect to Savannah, but I want to get to where Maureen is talking about, because this is the really important part. And hello, Patriot Pride. Thank you so much for dropping in. Thank you for saying hi. I love it that you're here. I support your podcast. I support all YouTubers. So thank you for supporting me. All right, let's go to Maureen's portion.
Forward. And that is something we should discuss, because Howard's reporting, and I know Howard Blum, he's very solid. I don't know how he gets the information he gets, but he gets really good exclusives. And his reporting is that this task force that we've all discussed before, that's what remains on the investigatory team now. And it's a combo of FBI and Tucson cops, detectives, that the task force has expressed some regret, from the sound of it, about not paying the ransom. That if they had just paid, if the FBI had agreed to pay the ransom, or tell Savannah to pay the ransom, that $4 million.
And I'm skipping forward again, trying to find the part. Hold on. Just be patient with me.
They should have paid it. If they're really believing this
$1 request, and you're going to keep playing.
I mean, if you just consider how they transported her or how they had to transport her. So she's bleeding from presumably her mouth, which they already know by now because they've tested that blood to see if saliva was in it or whatever on the front porch. So she's bleeding from her mouth. She's 84 years old. She has no medication with her. She's very frail. She's scared to death, and there's no proof of life. They obviously spoke with their doctors. They've talked with family members. You could see from watching her on Savannah's show how frail she was. So if they were doing pre-incident surveillance, they saw her with a walker or a cane going very slowly around her backyard. And when it's really hot and dry like that, it's difficult you could see someone breathing with labor. It's you have to have proof of life. It does sound callous.
On Monday and Tuesday, saying 4 million by Thursday, 6 million if
all right, I'm getting there, guys.
There's no more life. You had, but
I sound like
Come on.
you all.
she was
yeah,
scared.
she's okay, but she's
And
scared.
then, so the second, no, you ratchet that up. I have another thing I want to bring up, but you go first.
We're missing a lot of pieces of information,
Thank you for your patience.
and without them, it's going to be hard. But I think part of what happened with the second note is they're trying to take their foot off the gas. They're trying to trying to make the situation a little less explosive. And by that, I mean, they're trying to turn down the temp. Right now, everybody's full steam ahead. Everyone's looking for, they're out searching for, it's pedal to the metal, every single law enforcement agency, and they just wanted to just pull that back a little bit. And by saying that she's gone, by saying that she's, out in nature, what does that mean? It means they're going to, so we don't have to worry about writing warrants for houses right now. I mean, it just sends the investigation in a totally different direction and away from someone. And the final thing about this is a lot of this in the verbiage here is someone who cares.
That's the thing.
We always said from the beginning that this is someone that had some nexus to Nancy. This person is trying to say that they care, because that might, as James said, that might get them to pay. But they're just predators. They're just going to do whatever they can to get someone to pay them.
Thanks for watching this.
Oh dear. And you know what? Of course. All right. Well, I'm just going to paraphrase because obviously the technical gods are not in my favor tonight. So paraphrasing, basically, Maureen McConnell stated that she has a contact in the FBI, being a retired FBI agent herself. She has a contact, and she says they are getting close to Porch Guy. And she said once they find Porch Guy, she says the gates will open. All the information, everything else is going to fall into place. She says there's a ton of stuff happening. They have not made an arrest yet because what they're doing is law enforcement has to set the stage for the trial. Okay. And at this time, I believe that they've not made an arrest of whoever it is because there were so many fumbles in the very beginning of this investigation that any defense attorney is going to come in and they're going to break apart the investigation. Anyone watch Karen Reed? Anyone remember the Solo cups and the Shop and Stop paper bag and how they were collecting blood in red Solo cups and they put it in a Shop and Stop paper bag? There was no evidence tagging. There was no collection or chain of custody on anything. And that's exactly what Alan Jackson did, is he attacked the investigation. All right. And so there's probably so many holes in the early days of this investigation that they're having to probably button everything up. And maybe they're waiting on DNA. I don't know. Are they waiting on more tech forensics? I don't know. But when Megyn Kelly said, Maureen, how sure are you that they're close to Porch Guy? And she said, I'm 75%. She didn't say I'm 100%. But I'm 75%. So my next thing is, all right, if Maureen is saying that once they get Porch Guy, we all know he's a mope. He's the guy that came and he's the waiter. Who's the chef? All right. Now, Maureen O'Connell has been on the Interview Room before, and I've seen her look slightly, in my opinion, looks slightly uncomfortable because Chris McDonough, he dances around it and says, we're not pointing fingers at the family. We're not saying the family did anything. I'm not accusing the family, but then everything else he says is basically the family did it. Okay. He says everything that the family did it except for saying the family did it. Makes sense? And I've seen Maureen O'Connell kind of back off and get quiet during those panels because she was uncomfortable going all in on the family very early on in the investigation. And there was one panel she was on where she specifically said, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to get sued. Okay. And that is very true. First Amendment, but if it turns into, something that's harming, okay, if the family was innocent and it's harming and it's blah, blah, ruining reputations, that's a different story. Okay. But she went on Megyn Kelly yesterday and stated that she has information that they're close to Porch Guy. They're going to get him. They're just wrapping things up. Once they get Porch Guy, the chef is going to fall. So I think they have suspects. I don't know if it's Zach. Okay. We've looked at Zach. If you haven't seen my episode, we do a deep, deep dive into Zach. He's in Jordan, supposedly. Might be hard to get him. I'm not convinced he is involved. I'm not convinced he's not involved. Okay. I'm not convinced the family's involved. I'm not convinced the family's involved. My job is to look at everything. Okay. I want to look at everything. We need to consider everything until we have answers. We need to look at anything that could make sense because I think we're all going batty right now trying to figure out what the heck has happened. All right, so let me stop yapping and let's take a look at a few minutes from TIR last night where the panel really kind of starts talking about this note. And I thought it was kind of funny the way that they're saying that, have you ever seen a kidnapper that's, murdered an old woman talk about someone using the word perishing? And, it's very interesting. So let's take a look and we'll see.
Some of the thoughts that I want to hear from you guys in relationship to a trip that we just made to Tucson. And that is the secondary note. In that note, it sounds like it was pretty clear that they had a clear understanding perhaps that their mother was already deceased. And that note came in 5 days or approximately 5 days after the abduction. And which leads me to this thought, and the first question I have for you guys is, if they knew that, why was the secondary visual of them coming down the driveway with Annie holding a card, holding the flowers? And I want you to kind of think through, I wonder what the suspect was thinking when he or she saw that. Because I kind of opined on it this morning. It's like, well, if they already knew that their mom was dead and they're holding out hope and going through this exercise, then the suspect's probably thinking, from my opinion, well, maybe I didn't get the message out clear enough. What say you?
I would say, yeah, part of it was that, but I'm going to say that the biggest reason they did that was to show unity in the family because everybody was looking at Annie and Tommaso. And so by her coming down there and they're arm in arm and Tommaso's holding both of them up, and it would show that the family is with Annie and Tommaso, so just back off. That's what I felt.
Okay.
It seemed performative to me, very performative. And so I felt that there had to be a strong reason behind it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Maureen.
Yeah, me three. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a Potemkin village element to this that was particularly, now that we know that when they did this, there was already a reasonable person would have concluded that Nancy was no longer there. So why put this performance on? If I was the suspect, to your point, Chris, it's either did they not get the message, or why are they trying to game me? What is it? What tactic is being employed here to try and get me to give myself away? So it kind of puzzling.
So, which leads me into the card. What's the purpose of the card?
It's just such a conundrum. The purpose of the card, I mean, if she gave it to her sister, that would be one thing, or gave it to her brother. But to put a card open like that in front, if they were to come down with flowers, honestly, that would have been totally within what I would consider normal behavior or a normal response. Like, hey guys, there's this huge, monument to mom out in front, and maybe we should just put flowers there. That's one thing. But the card where you could read it from the sidewalk or from the street, and again, I didn't understand that. I know people grieve differently, but I found that more interesting than anything else.
Well, the text was suggestive of that they were communicating with their living mother. And there's, to me, no sense of this being a family coming to terms with the passing of the matriarch. It almost reads as if, Mom, if you were here, you could, that we love you, and
please come back.
There's an element of staginess about that too.
Yeah. I viewed it as being very performative, and like some of the other comments already, they were doing this to show the world that they were all united, and to perhaps take some of the heat off other family members. And I think that's why they did it. If you look at the card, it's just Annie, Tommaso, and the son that signed it. And just before I joined in here tonight, I happened to catch Monk's intrigue, and to give Monk's the credit for that, he analyzed the card and pointed that out. And I had not realized that until he pointed it out. And perhaps we discussed it panel in a much earlier show or right after it happened. I don't remember if we discussed who signed it, but I thought that was an interesting observation by Monks.
Yeah, Dan, what say you? You're a little quiet up there.
Dramatic charade, in my opinion. The whole thing, except for I'd say Savannah was probably the most sincere person of the three. Just calling it the way that I saw it.
Yeah, I will say. Sorry, Dan. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I will say, and I talked to Dan about this earlier. I will say what I found to be really strange about that letter was 3 references to fire. In that, we stand on burning embers of hope. Here we are in burning ash. Or if you could pull up the letter, you'll see that there are 3 different references.
We'll look at
to fire in there, which I just thought was weird. But she is a poet, and people express themselves in different ways.
That's a really interesting catch, Maureen. Yeah, the language.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's kind of funny to me that you bring that up, because there's a part in that. I don't want to jump too far ahead.
No, you're fine. Keep running.
But there's a part that almost sounds poetic to me in that the second address.
That's what it is.
To the regarding the ransom and stuff, and where the words buried with nature.
Buried in nature. Yes, you're right, Dan.
Buried in nature. That's I could tell you this much. the clown guy on the porch
The clown.
isn't writing that on a note or an email. That clown guy is not doing something like that. Who would write something like that? It sounds
To a grieving family.
It
Yeah.
sounds to me like that's written from a female.
Mhm.
Yep.
Or
And-
the
and
so-called
then-
ransom notes. Yeah.
Yes, and when that came out, it just blew me away because I'm like, you got to be kidding me. They want people to think this porch clown is the one that wrote something like that. That tells you right there that there's more people involved.
Well,
Yeah.
and the expression scorched earth that appears, scorched earth can have obviously different meanings. It can actually be descriptive of burned ground, but all of us who've worked at police departments know what the expression means when you say, I'm going scorched earth, which means you're about to destroy everything around you.
Mhm.
And I thought that was a very peculiar expression to employ when talking about Nancy, an 84-year-old woman. So
Do you happen to remember the other two references to fire? The scorched earth, the standing on the burning embers of hope, and does anyone
Yes.
remember the third one? I don't.
I got to pull it up here. Hang on.
we talked about it last night on that card that the smallest word on the card is the word love.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, there was all kinds of really interesting.
And I'm not going to play much
And
more.
then, since I opened it up about
I
the
just
guy
wanna-
on the porch,
Give you
and
comment.
in relation to there was a sense of sympathy in that the
Yeah.
address. You know what I mean? Like, we're so sorry. She went, well, what the hell did you think was going to happen?
Yeah.
Right.
When you get into a ski mask and you break into an 84-year-old lady's house
With a gun.
early in the morning, and take her out there without her medication and everything, you didn't think that was there's a great possibility of death.
All right, so
And-
here's the note. So I'm going to read it. Mama, we miss you so much. Our hearts are broken. We are standing on ash, on scorched earth. But Mom, through me, though we are surrounded by so much darkness and uncertainty, our love burns bright. We love you, Mommy. We miss you so much. Our best friend, Annie, Tommaso, and I'm not sure, Olmo. And so she's a poet. This is probably how she's expressing herself, but you know what the panel is saying, and I like Big City Dan. These guys are he's from Chicago, and Chicago homicide cops, they're pretty direct, and I like direct, but he's pretty much saying that there's no way Porch Clown wrote that she perished and she's now buried in nature, and I have to agree. And what he just said is that there's obviously a group of people involved, and we all, suspected Porch Guy was just the worker bee. There could have been a driver, but whoever's writing these notes, it definitely does sound female. The words that they're using are, I'm sorry, I could see how it could be the same person that's writing this note to me. And keep in mind, the second note was received, and I might be off on the date, but it was around February 6th, they got the second note. So by February 6th, the family knew she was gone. Nanos stopped searching. There were no more cadaver dogs out there, and everyone's like, where are the dogs? Why are you not looking? I think, maybe he stopped looking because he knew there's no person to go get. I think he should have taken the help of the searchers to get her remains, but again, they may have information that we don't, and at that time, I mean, I'm the first person in line to make fun of Nanos, okay? And the Corvette and just the physique and the, ooh, he's so hot. He's 70 and he's hot. Ugh, but if they already knew she was dead, the point is why is this letter being put at the memorial? And it does look performative. Is this somebody who's trying to make it look like, you know, going extra, laying it on that she's a victim when she's not a victim? Okay. And, you know, if and this is something I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to finish with this video. I'm going to take this off the screen right now, but you know, if anybody has had to take care of an elderly parent, let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments, because, you know, I had an 82-year-old mother who at around 79 she was widowed in the last year before she had a stroke. And after she had a stroke, her personality changed. I mean, it changed. There were times she was like a child. There were times when we'd find her in the middle of the night in the winter in the backyard. There were times when she was nasty. There were times when she would pout. There were times she would try to manipulate me. There were times when everything was fine. Okay. It's the gamut when you've got somebody after they've had a stroke and, you know, they've had getting old, you know, things like that. But I know that Nancy was still living in her home, but was she becoming a hindrance to people? Was it getting harder and harder considering she was having trouble walking? How much care was she needing? Yes, she was sharp in her brain, but was she becoming a hindrance to the family? It's not fun taking care of elderly parents, especially if they have health problems. Okay. If A&T were having financial issues, is this something where they just said, look, mom's a pain in the butt? She has said, no, we've asked for loans. She's being unreasonable. Maybe they were fighting. Could be anything. Okay. Along that whole gamut. And could it be that they just said, look, you know, it's better off that we just do something? And maybe they were trying to scare her. Maybe the whole, you know, porch guy killing her was not intended. Maybe they thought they could stage a kidnapping and kidnap her, keep her safe, and then get the money and then return her. But she got killed in the meantime. And Cam and Savannah don't know that A&T staged an innocent kidnapping to get this ransom. And, you know, I've thought many times, Savannah working at NBC, she has a certain amount of security, a security detail, security team. She has most likely had some sort of risk assessment security training. Okay. Especially with wealth. She may have already been aware of this Bitcoin fraud. You know, I'm just a regular person. Okay. I have no idea anything about Bitcoin, and I certainly had never heard of wrench attacks. But she and Cameron, maybe they were aware of this type of threat with the Bitcoin and the kidnapping, just from her getting educated as far as a risk assessment as part of her security detail. And she could have shared it with the family. And who knows, that may have even give A&T the idea of planning a staged kidnapping. I mean, how do we know that Savannah a year ago didn't mention that she had some sort of, you know, risk training, and that she learned about all these wrench attacks that have really been increasing in 2025, and they were all getting together for a holiday. And she said, yeah, you guys, there's this whole thing. You wouldn't believe what I heard there, where people are getting kidnapped for Bitcoin ransom. And it could be that maybe Annie and T were at the wit's end trying to figure out a financial situation and solution. And they said, well, what if we just, have someone kidnap mom, and we get the ransom paid to this Bitcoin, and then it's Derek Collella's Bitcoin account or whatever he's connected with. And, our problems will be solved. Mom comes back, and maybe she'll be more appreciative after this whole thing happens, and no harm, no foul, tit tap, deep tap. Okay. And what Chris said, he walked around that park that's near Annie's situation where she works. Did Annie, with her community outreach, did she find Porch Guy? Did she find Porch Guy and say, here's mom's address? Because again, like Chris said, what's the first thing Porch Guy had? He had an address. Okay. It isn't like someone could draw a map and say, here, go follow this map, and this is where Nancy lives. He was given an address. He plugged an address in a GPS in order to get there. There's no other way to find her house. I promise you. Okay. So what if they said, go check it out, get the lay of the land, and then have you do it on this date. We've got, mom's coming over for dinner. We're going to take her home, do it this weekend. And I mean, maybe they just innocently staged a kidnapping. Again, all speculation, no accusations. It's a theory. I'm working out a theory. Okay. It's still on the table. So if they're planning to stage this in order to get the money paid to whoever they owed it to or whatever they needed it for, mom gets returned home. We all go on with our life. Oh my gosh, this was horrible. But they find out that mom doesn't make it. Annie's pain walking up to that memorial in Tommaso, they looked very, very heavy. Okay. Annie is sobbing, heaved, uncontrollable sobbing in that video where she's putting, Savannah puts the flower down, Annie puts the note down. Her regret could be different. And here Savannah is thinking that this is all her fault. And I mean, if Savannah thinks she's got trauma and problems now with the situation, if she ever found out that her brother-in-law and sister were behind this, that's a whole new set of therapy, a whole new 2 or 3 years of therapy, and probably medication from her physician. Seriously. And if we felt sorry for Savannah, if this scenario, for however it goes, if it leads back to her sister, I mean, that's beyond brutal. And again, I'm working through a theory. These are not even really my opinions. I'm just brainstorming and talking out a theory. All right, so let's take a look at Monk's intrigue, because he does, I guess, go into kind of and you know what? He's actually pretty clever. I have to say, he's pretty clever. He puts out these quick videos, and if you guys have noticed, my thumbnails are very basic. I use Canva. I am not going to do AI thumbnails. I am me. You get me. Okay. I'm not wearing a tutu. I'm not tap dancing. I don't have music. It's just me. If you like me, you'll come and watch me. I don't have fancy thumbnails. I think Monk's is a lot like that. His shows, he's just sitting in his backyard, and he really dives into this stuff. And I really like that because, you know, and I want to give a shout out to Joe. I see you, Joe. Good evening. And I want to give a shout out to Steve Norris because Joe has emailed me a lot. Joe and I have talked a lot via email about different theories. And Steve has sent me some really good information in comments before that I've shared that I thought were very interesting about, you know, Zach, and we went down that rabbit hole. I'm never not going to be open to something as long as it doesn't sound crazy. Okay. If it sounds really like, wow, that's really out there. But if I feel like something actually could be a piece of a puzzle, I'm going to look at it and I'm not going to apologize. Absolutely not. Because, you know, I think everybody here, and I'm recognizing so many people coming back. I mean, we care about Nancy. We want her to come home, and, you know, we want her to be found. I'm trying to figure out how to get the searchers to like put together a Google Drive sheet where people can document their latitude and longitude of where they've searched so that we can somewhat organize places of searching. Because if she's not found by this fall or winter when it's not 115 degrees out, shoot, I'm going to go look for her. I am happy to go look for her. I don't want anyone to get sick because it is dangerous right now to be out. All right. Again, I'm going to stop yapping, and let's watch Monks and see what he has to say. He's going to analyze the note that Annie leaves.
Missing loved ones. We're wanting from them what other people with missing loved ones would want from us, the public. Now, A&T may give us what we want someday, you know, standing in front of a news camera and letting us know how the last months of their lives have been turned upside down or whatnot. But we do have Annie's poem that she left her mother at the memorial. Now, just going on the assumption that everybody's read this card already, we could easily assume that it's written by Annie. Okay, she uses things like mom or mommy. And so Annie writes, "Mama, we miss you so much. Our hearts are broken. We are standing on ash, on scorched earth. But Mom, though we are surrounded by so much darkness and uncertainty, our love burns bright. We love you, Mommy. We miss you so much. Our best friend." And it seems cut and dry, but let's try our best to break it down anyways. Okay, so Mama, we miss you so much. And she felt the need to add an exclamation point there, kind of like she's showing her emotions, like she's shouting this, conveying that her emotions are so raw and painful at the moment that she feels a need to express herself as screaming for her mother. I felt I was reading the letter in a somber manner. Like I felt like that should have been the mood, the sadness to come through. But when you add an exclamation point, which is to emphasize excitement, it kind of takes away that a bit for me. But that's just a me problem. So I feel it was a interesting choice for Annie to use exclamation points, and she will continue to do so. Now, Annie is supposed to be known as the shy one. Okay, that's why we never see her, and she doesn't offer her presence when she doesn't want to, I guess you could say. So me picturing her screaming these things as is represented in this card is a bit odd for me to imagine. Now, I feel it's fair to point out that it's a little interesting that Annie calls Nancy mommy, okay? Savannah is going to do the same thing in one of the plea videos as well, right? Now, I won't go as far as to say that that is childish. I mean, it comes across that way when you hear someone when you're an adult and you call your mother mommy. I think it's fair for people to feel that a bit childish, but I wouldn't use that word because that it's more along the lines of a term of endearment. And you have to go back to their past and maybe why this is so, because they lost their father at a very young age. I believe Savannah was only 16, which would make Annie about 18. And Cameron was in his early 20s. That is a very young age to lose somebody that was very precious to them. It's a very traumatic moment. They had to be there for each other. However, it also gives me pause to wonder as well if their relationship with their mother never really advanced past when they were just young girls, right? Like going back to when their father, Charles, right? He died suddenly, and that pain may have frozen in time their bond, their relationship at that moment where they called Nancy mommy. I mean, it's kind of beautiful in the sense that they call her mommy, okay, when you really think about it along that line. Okay, so anyways, so we're going to move on to the next line. Our hearts are broken. Again, she adds that darn exclamation point. So when I read our, I looked at who signed the card, and that would be Annie, Tommaso, and Olmo, which is their young son, their 13-year-old son, which leads us to believe that she's speaking just for the immediate family, right? Now, I want you guys to notice something that I found intriguing, okay? Annie's writing is what we can assume the handwriting experts call chicken scratch. She presses harder than she should, creating those fatter letters with that felt tip marker, presumably some magenta colored Sharpie, okay? Now, whoever wrote the names isn't so heavy-handed as Annie and angles the tip of the marker almost straight down to get those thin, lanky letters. Now notice how different Annie, Tommaso, and Olmo are written. Look at the O's in the names, okay? Compare it to the O's written in the body of the card. Whoever wrote the O's in the names always slants it towards the right, okay? Now you can't unsee it, right? Whereas Annie writes just a regular standing O, which leads me to believe that adding the names was an afterthought, not by Annie, but by someone else. That someone else came in after and pretty much made Annie's inclusive letter that she's trying to loved ones or whatnot. And by adding names, that person made this an exclusive letter. And so
Interesting.
I do believe that Annie wrote this with the idea that it was to encompass all of what her family is feeling, which would include Savannah, it would include Cameron, and anyone else who loved her mother, which is a much more beautiful message, a more complete way for our hearts are broken to be taken. So whoever came in at the end essentially ruined that. That person, I will say, pretty much shut the card on anyone else's pain, but their own, which I will say is rather selfish. And like I've mentioned before, the walk to Nancy's memorial, in my opinion, was simply to show solidarity between Savannah and Annie and Tommaso. Do I believe that they're that close? Not really. The last two people to see Nancy Guthrie alive are, of course, going to get heat on them in this case, as it was reported that the police had Tommaso as their person of interest from the very beginning. Okay, so I'm almost certain that this memorial walk, all the hugging and the sobbing, was just as much about Nancy as it was about Annie and Tommaso. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next line. We are standing on ash, on scorched earth. Now, I'm sure this line is the line that has most eyebrows raised. Just one eyebrow. If you are extra appalled, right? Now, I believe what she's trying to express is just pure devastation, okay? That their world has been reduced to ash. It's a very dramatic way to put it, right? But she's a poet, and her words are usually based in metaphor and just not words that, normal people writing would use. Then she uses the dreaded exclamation point again. The letter continues, but Mom, though we are surrounded by so much darkness and uncertainty, our love burns bright. She's saying that even though she's standing on this scorched earth, that they still have a lot of love and hope, that they're going to show resilience, past all this darkness, keep the faith, blowing on the embers of hope, I believe, because of how much they love their mother. And so she ends it with, we love you, Mommy. We miss you so much. Our best friend. And she ends it with 2. exclamation points. So the card ends pretty clearly, right? Nothing to explain. Overall, a good card to give homage to their mother, until, of course, that someone came in to slam this card shut by excluding everyone else by writing down their names. Now, that's pretty much what I want to express about that card. Let me know if you guys agree or not, or how you would.
I think that's brilliant, I have to say, because I had not even thought to look at the card. It's gone now. We don't know where it is, but again, I mean, I have to give Monks a lot of credit for him to even go in and, you know, drill down on every single line. And it really does make me think. I mean, how do we know that Annie could be a victim here? If this speculation, if they are involved, I mean, is Tommaso using some sort of, code word coercive control over her? And I thought it was weird that they both called her mommy. I've always felt that they come across as kind of, I don't want to call them naive, okay, but they do come across as, just beaver cleaver kind of sweet, as far as, maybe just, I'm not sure exactly what to say. I have to really think about, but it comes across as kind of beaver cleaver, that calling her mommy, the fact that the month that they were sitting in a house while everybody was out searching for Nancy, and everybody was, stuck to the TV, they were supposedly in the house together, huddled, hugging, crying, and praying. Okay. And again, no shade, but were there other things that they could have been doing? What else could they have been doing to help find their mother? And yes, they probably knew she was gone and she was dead. Well, maybe, I don't know. I'm sure that they were being advised again by the powers that be, because there's no playbook for having your 84-year-old mother kidnapped and murdered. And so they're relying on the experts that do this for a living. So again, no judgment. They're all victims, okay? But, were they really for 30 days just sitting in a house, hugging and crying and just holding each other? Because I know what I would be doing. I would be out there, and I'd have the yarn and the dry erase board, and I'd have pictures, and I'd have a cork board, and I'd have lines, and I'd have triangulation. And I mean, again, it might be different because Savannah is a celebrity. And we don't know what their dynamic is. Is there infighting between the siblings? It doesn't seem to be with the sister, but is Tommaso, could he have some sort of control over Annie? And is Savannah going to back him? And, because the best way for people to come together is to have a common enemy. Okay. The common enemy is the media, the accusations. And, even if you have a problem internally with your brother-in-law, if everyone is coming at them, you're going to back that person. It's like, okay, yeah, he's a dumbass, but he's my dumbass. And you don't call him dumbass, I call him dumbass. You know what I'm saying? So it could be that even if there had been some personality issues, that you put them aside when the going gets tough. Okay. Does the whole card thing, I mean, when I'm now looking back at them walking down, it looks to me like after the girls, Savannah and Annie, lay the flowers down, I see Tommaso in that video just kind of really grabbing them and bringing them in toward him. I mean, he's like, come to me, let me show everybody, we're together. I love you so much. I love Nancy. Is it that kind of a thing where is it performative? Because he's really grabbing him. And really just going back to just the money situation. Again, I just don't see how a teacher salary of $53,000 a year. I mean, we know how much groceries cost. It's tough. They've got one child, but again, she can't be making that much money. And I don't know. I'm just not seeing it, guys. Help me here. Unless it's like really fine jewelry and it's like fine metal and diamonds and things like that, I'm just not seeing how you're paying for, you know, a $500,700,000 house. That gets pricey. I will, Joe. Code word, check your Gmail. All right. So I've been yapping tonight, but what I want to say, well, and Steve, that could be the thing. You know, honestly, how do we know that Savannah hasn't helped her sister out? I mean, if you've got that kind of money coming in, how do we know that, you know, Savannah didn't pay off mom's mortgage and Savannah didn't set Annie up? I mean, she could be very generous. That's funny. Email us all, Joe. Yeah, let's get a thread. Yeah. Yeah, she could have paid for it. And that would be very, very, you know, very generous. But even car payments. You know, there's a YouTube guy that literally takes a microphone and walks around the street in his town and asks people, how much is your car payment every month? And it's nuts. These really nice cars, there are people that are paying $1,000, $1,500 for just the car payment a month. So, I mean, it's expensive. So we don't have answers, but the good news is listening to Maureen O'Connell, the takeaway here, because I'm a half glass full kind of gal. Okay. There has been stuff going on. The FBI has not been nanofied. All right. Which is good, because there was a day when we were first talking about Buscanda de Corazones, when I was thinking nobody really wanted to solve this, but that's just nanofication of my day was ruined because of nano. Duh. But if they are close to Porch Guy, if they can crack Porch Guy, then the rest of this is going to just, she said the gates will open, the river will flow. All right, Chris talks truth, which is why I found it weird that the rumors are saying Annie and Tommaso asked Nancy for money. Wouldn't you ask your sister who has 40 million instead of your 84-year-old mother? You know, it's a very good question, but maybe there's a dynamic. They could feel, and again, we don't know who's controlling, who wears the pants in the family, but here's the deal. If they're taking care of Nancy, what if they feel a certain amount of entitlement? Look, we're taking care of you. I sit there every 2 weeks and I fill up your pill organizer. I do all your medication. I go pick up your refills. I make sure you've got your food delivery. We're doing all of this, and you can't help us out. We need a loan. And that could be a start of a whole crack in a relationship, guys. If they are the caregivers, which it sounds like they are, if they are the caregivers and they're spending all their, evenings or weekends making sure that Nancy's set up, we're stopping by every other day to take the mail in. I'm putting her groceries away because she can't lift them. I'm helping her with laundry. We are pulling weeds, changing the bed. Mom, had an accident and I have to go do this now. Or have you guys heard this one? I can't get into my email and attach this picture. Can you come help me with my computer? I mean, if anyone's ever taken care of an older parent who isn't tech savvy, how many times have you been asked to help? with the computer. And if I'm doing all of that and I need, 10 grand, 20 grand, maybe that doesn't seem like a lot to them. Just guessing, just brainstorming. I'm making this up as I go. I'm putting together a scenario. If I'm taking care of mom and I think, you know what, the least she can do. She's got all this money in the bank, and I know she does because I help do her banking. I know, Mom, you've got $300,000 in your checking account. You've got $600,000 in your savings account. You're telling me you can't give us 20,000. And you expect me to do all your medication, take you to the doctor, do the oil changes, okay? And the TV, yes, the remote. Oh Lord, my mother, we had to get a specific program. I got DirecTV and I had to do the channels in alphabetical order because all the channel numbers were too hard for her to remember. And then she couldn't remember how to use the remote, swear to God. And I would go in 3 times a day and show her how to do the remote. I printed it out with screenshots. I worked from home and she would stand there and go, I'm sorry, can you show me how to use the remote again? I'm like, oh my God, I love my mother. I love my mother. And you know what? It's just how it goes. It's just how it goes. They're going to drive you nuts, even on a good day. And that's just life. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just how it is. Okay. So there are casinos in Arizona on reservations. There are several casinos in Phoenix, about an hour and a half away. And I've not been to Tucson in last time I was in Tucson. All right, here's a fun fact. The last time I was in Tucson, Arizona, before May 4th, when I went to Nancy's house, I was there the night Lady Diana, Princess Diana, was killed. That was the last time I was in Tucson. And we drove back we lived in Phoenix, and I was with my sister, and we drove back, and we were all blubbering and crying in the car. And I think my sister was driving too slow or something. We got pulled over, and the cop, he comes up, and we're all crying, just a bunch of girls in the car, and we're all crying. And he's like, what is going on in this car? And we're like, Princess Diana's dead. And he just said, okay, you know what? He's like counseling us. He's like, you know what? She's always going to be beautiful forever. She's never going to grow old. It's going to be okay. Go on home. Just be safe. So anyway, but yeah, I'm sure that there are casinos in Tucson. Yeah, it's the Indian reservations do it. It's a really good monetary source for them. August 31st, 1997. I will never forget that night. I have not heard if she's had a caretaker. I can't imagine, unless she had insurance that helped with a caretaker. I know in my situation, we had to pay out of pocket. We had, when my mom first had her stroke and she came to live with me again, she was ending up in the backyard in the freezing winter and standing in the backyard in her pajamas. Okay. And I hired a night nurse for a couple nights because I needed to sleep. But then I think that was just weird having someone in the house all night. And I felt like I had to be up anyway. So I just said, no, we're not. And we had to pay out of pocket. So, and if she's sharp as a tack, what they're saying, and she just had some, just mobility issues, that she had pain, but she could walk. She just had pain. I can imagine that they wouldn't have hired too much help, especially if they didn't have a paid subscription for the Nest camera. So, I don't know, but gosh, every day, I don't know. Obviously they're taking time and, pulling Zach back in with the car dealers again. I don't know. I don't know if I don't think Zach is porch guy. I don't know if he really is, but if they're having to get him from Jordan, that's going to be a whole delay all on its own. You know, I had pulled up in Pima County criminal records, and the only thing I saw for Zach was an eviction in 2019, and that's when he said he left. He had an eviction from, I think, an apartment complex, and there was nothing else since then. So, I mean, it's very, very possible that he has not come back. I mean, Bill Garcia seems very credible. The private investigator that was on Criminally Obsessed, he seems very credible, but I don't know. You know, and my first hunch was really going off of Maureen O'Connell. She was, you know, jumping into the conversation about the flowery wording in the second ransom note and how it doesn't make sense. And then they're connecting it to indirectly to Annie's note that she left at the memorial. And I really have to think that there could be a there, because I don't think Maureen is going to jump in on the A&T bandwagon if she doesn't have some insight. And I mean, I think that they know she can shut her mouth. And if she has an inside connection with the FBI, I can see maybe somebody confiding in her just to a certain extent. And if she says that they're zeroing in on the porch guy, and when Megyn Kelly asked, you know, what percentage are you sure? And she said 75%. Does that 75%, because 50-50 means, yeah, they could be or they may not be in on the porch guy. Was she saying 75%, that they're 75% close to naming porch guy? Meaning when they get to, you know, as far as, let me see if I can make sense. As far as like a timeline, if we're 3/4 of the way, we only have 25% left before they're going to name porch guy, meaning that this investigation is 75% done. Okay, that's what I was trying to say. So is the investigation 75% done, or is she's more than 50-50 that they're going to get porch guy? But and the fact that then that later that night she goes on the interview room and chimes in on the note is weird, the language is weird. And I would imagine, knowing what I've seen from Maureen, if there was nothing, if Annie had nothing to do with this, and Maureen knew Annie had nothing to do with this, I don't think Maureen would have chimed in on breaking down the note that Annie left. I think she would be more sympathetic and saying, hey guys, they're victims. Let's back off. Let's show some respect. If that's what she wanted to do, that's what she wanted to do. I think that that's the angle that Maureen would have taken. And the fact that at this point, knowing that Maureen has some inside information and that she's kind of, I don't want to, not ganging up, but she's joining in on the rhetoric around this weird card and then tying it to the ransom note and how no killer, you know, kidnapper is going to say she perished. She's buried in nature. I mean, that's very flowy. That's very flowy. Hey, J-Dub, I'm so sorry that your sister you know, there's so many families that are affected by this. It does ruin families. And you know what? We don't know what's going on in Annie's house. We don't know. We have no idea. And Annie could be a victim in a completely different way. She could be reacting and, you know, trying to appease her husband, and she could be trying to put a band-aid over his problems. Because keep in mind, if these ladies were raised in, you know, a very, what it sounds like, very Christian beaver cleaver type household. I'm not sure that Annie would be mature enough or emotionally savvy enough to deal with a husband who has a gambling problem, a husband who, and I'm not saying he does, I have no idea, but I'm just saying her type of personality, let me rephrase it, her type of personality, a more simple person, a more naive person, a goody kind of person, she's not going to know how to handle someone who has a drug addiction. That you don't realize that the drug addict is going to steal your jewelry and all of a sudden the laptops are going to be gone from the house, or my wedding ring is at the pawn shop and I see receipts, or someone says that they got the oil changed and the oil isn't, the oil light's still on. Okay. She's not going to know how to deal with that. And she may be reacting to a situation that she could be in way over her head. If she's got a mommy, if my mommy is the level of her emotional maturity and emotional intelligence, she's not going to be able to handle somebody who has an addiction of something else. Okay. In my opinion. And so is she, and if this is right, okay, if this whole speculation is right, and there is, you know, the family has done this, that how involved really is she? You know, is she the driver or is she in the passenger seat? So it's really hard to say. But I don't know. We'll have to see. And yes, we have Derek Halala coming up because we don't know, is he an informant somehow? And July 2nd, yes, July 2nd is the big day. I don't know what's going to happen. Who knows? What the thing is with Fed stuff, there's no cameras and there's limited information. It's not like it is with, you know, state or county court where, you know, we get all the goods, but I don't know. We'll see, but it's hard to say. And according to Maureen, they are taking their time because the defense can probably pop a whole bunch of holes in this investigation because of nano. It's been nanofied. That's actually now an adverb, nanofied, or adjective, maybe adverb. One of those. Yes, more will be revealed. All right, you guys. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I really appreciate everybody coming tonight. If you have not subscribed, it's free. You get what you get with me. Again, I don't do AI thumbnails. You're going to just get me. I like to do PowerPoints. I like to look at stuff. And I don't want any money from anybody. I just want you to subscribe and hit that bell so that you come back when I'm live. Okay? Go buy some groceries, put some gas in your gas tank, give you guys a big crunchy hug. I'm back in the crime crunchy layer. All right. So I hope you all have a great rest of your night. I'm not sure what I'll be doing the rest of the week. I'm going to be in Dallas this weekend and I'm going to try to still come live. So look for me in a different area. I won't be in the crime crunchy layer, but until then, I will catch you on the flip side. Toodaloo.